10 minutes before the vows, my work rival slid her hand into mine like she had every right to be there. Like we weren't sitting in the third row of a lakefront chapel, pretending to be a couple in front of 200 strangers. Like she hadn't spent the last 2 years trying to beat me in every client pitch, every quarterly review, every office debate over whether clean and modern meant brilliant or boring. Her fingers were cold. That was the first thing I noticed. The second was that Serena Vale wasn't looking at the groom. She was looking at the folded wedding program in her lap, like it had just threatened her. Serena, I whispered, leaning close enough to smell the soft vanilla of her perfume. You're crushing my hand. She loosened her grip but didn't let go. Sorry, she said. That scared me more than anything. Serena didn't apologize. Serena corrected. Serena challenged. Serena once told a room full of executives that my campaign concept had the emotional depth of a refrigerator magnet. Then bought me coffee afterward because, in her words, you looked like you needed to be revived. I'm Noah Caldwell. I was 32 years old, a senior brand strategist at a Chicago agency where people used words like synergy without irony and drank cold brew like it was a legal requirement. And Serena Vale was my favorite problem. She was 31, sharp as broken glass, always in heels that sounded like punctuation marks when she walked past my office. She had dark hair she usually pinned up when she meant business, which was almost always, and green eyes that made you feel like you'd been cross-examined before breakfast. I told myself I disliked her. That was convenient. It explained why I noticed when she laughed at someone else's joke. It explained why I stayed late when she stayed late. It explained why every argument with her left me annoyed, awake, and weirdly impressed. But it did not explain why, 3 days earlier, when she appeared at my office door holding a cream-colored wedding invitation, my first thought was, please don't be asking someone else. She didn't knock. She never knocked. You own a suit that doesn't look like you were subpoenaed, right? She asked. I looked up from a deck I'd been pretending to revise. Good morning to you too, Vale. It's noon. Then your charm is late. She stepped inside and shut the door behind her. That was new. Serena didn't do closed doors with me unless there was a client disaster or a printer jam she intended to blame on my entire gender. She placed the invitation on my desk between us. Gold lettering, heavy paper, ridiculously expensive. I read the names before I meant to, Natalie Pierce and Daniel Mercer. Daniel Mercer, even I knew that name. He was the ex. The one nobody in the office mentioned after Serena went silent for 2 weeks the previous spring and came back wearing lipstick dark enough to qualify as a warning. He used to work in our industry. Handsome, polished, the kind of guy who looked like he apologized to mirrors for making them feel inadequate. I glanced up. You're invited to your ex's wedding? Apparently, I'm cherished enough to witness his fresh start. That's either very mature or very sick. Both can be true. She said it lightly, but her thumb rubbed the edge of her ring finger. No ring there. Just the ghost of one, maybe. I should have made a joke. That was our language. Instead, I asked, Are you okay? Her eyes flicked to mine. For half a second, the office changed. The hum of printers, the glass wall, the view of traffic crawling down Michigan Avenue. Everything blurred around the fact that Serena Vale looked tired. Not weak. Never that. Just tired in a way she usually hid from everyone, including herself. Then she smiled and the armor slid back into place. I need a date. I blinked. You need a what? A date. A man. A reasonably presentable human with shoulders and the ability to make polite conversation. I'm touched by the specificity. Don't get sentimental. You were my third choice. Who were the first two? Michelle Obama and a cardboard cutout of Stanley Tucci. I'm honored to outrank cardboard eventually. She leaned one hip against my desk, close enough that I could see the tiny gold flecks in her eyes. That was unfair. Workplace rivalry should come with distance guidelines. I need someone who won't get weird, she said. Serena, we get weird professionally. I mean someone who won't assume this means something. That landed a little harder than it should have. I sat back. Does it? Her mouth opened, closed. There it was again, that tiny break in her rhythm. No, she said too quickly. It means I don't want to walk into that room alone. I nodded, pretending not to feel disappointed by an answer I had no right to want changed. Why me? I asked. She looked toward the glass wall where our coworkers moved around like fish in an aquarium. Because you don't pity me, she said. You argue with me. You make me furious. You notice things without turning them into speeches. I didn't have a comeback for that, so naturally I tried one anyway. You also think I have shoulders. Don't let it go to your head. I'm adding it to my resume. That got me the smallest laugh. Barely there, but real, and because I'm apparently not as smart as my job title suggests, that tiny laugh did something dangerous to me. It made me say yes. Which is how 3 days later I was standing beside Serena outside the chapel at Lake Geneva, wearing my best navy suit while she adjusted my tie like she'd done it 100 times. You're crooked, she said. I've been called worse by you. Only when you deserved it. Her fingers brushed my collar, quick, efficient. Still, my body reacted like she'd traced a match along my skin. She noticed. Of course she noticed. Her eyes lifted to mine, and for one strange, quiet second, neither of us moved. You clean up well, Caldwell, she said softly. My throat went dry. Careful, Vale. That almost sounded like a compliment. It was a tactical observation. About my face? About your usefulness. Brutal. But she was smiling, not the office smile. Not the competitive one. This one had nerves tucked inside it. I offered my arm. Ready to emotionally dominate a wedding? She stared at my arm like it was a ledge. Then she took it. The moment her hand curled around my sleeve, she exhaled. And I realized she hadn't asked me because I was convenient. She had asked me because, for some reason I didn't understand yet, I made her feel steadier. That realization should have made me proud. Instead, it made me want to be worthy of it. Inside, the chapel looked like a magazine spread. White roses, floating candles, string quartet, lake glittering through tall windows. Everyone was beautiful in that careful, expensive way people get when a wedding photographer costs more than your first car. Serena's grip tightened when we passed a table of framed photos near the entrance. There was Daniel Mercer, smiling beside his bride-to-be. And tucked behind that frame, half hidden, was another picture. Daniel and Serena. Not recent. Not posed for the wedding. Serena in a red dress laughing up at him like she had once believed the world was kind. Someone had placed it there deliberately. I felt her stop breathing. Serena, I said under my breath. I didn't know that would be here. Her voice was steady. Her hand was not. Across the chapel, the groom turned. Daniel Mercer saw her. His smile didn't fade. It sharpened. Then he lifted 2 fingers in a small wave, like she had arrived exactly when he expected. Serena leaned closer to me, her lips barely moving. Noah, she whispered, whatever happens during the vows, don't let me leave. I should have asked what she meant. Any sane man would have pulled Serena aside and said, what happens during the vows? But the music changed, the doors opened, and 200 people rose as one. So I rose with them, Serena's hand locked around mine. Natalie Pierce walked down the aisle in a cloud of silk and lace, beautiful in the bright, effortless way of people who had never had to learn how to make sharp edges look intentional. Daniel watched her approach with the practiced tenderness of a man who knew where every camera was. Beside me, Serena stood very still. Not jealous. That was what surprised me. I had expected anger, pain, maybe the bitter satisfaction of seeing an ex marry someone else too quickly and too publicly. But Serena's face held something else. Dread. When we sat again, her knee brushed mine. She didn't move it away, neither did I. The officiant began with the usual lines about love and partnership, about 2 lives becoming one. I heard almost none of it. I was too aware of Serena beside me, of the faint tremble she kept trying to hide by pressing her fingers into my palm. I turned my hand and threaded our fingers together. Her eyes flicked to mine. A question? I answered by squeezing once. I'm here. Her lips parted slightly, and for a moment, the rivalry, the office, the fake date, everything fell away. She looked at me like she wanted to believe me. Then Daniel cleared his throat. I wrote my own vows, he said, smiling at Natalie. A ripple of fond laughter moved through the chapel. Serena went cold beside me. Daniel unfolded a piece of paper and began to read. Natalie, before you, I thought love was a negotiation, a series of clever arguments, a contest to see who could care less. The words were polished, warm, almost beautiful, but Serena flinched as if he'd placed a hand on the back of her neck. I leaned closer. Serena? She shook her head once. Don't. Daniel continued. Then you taught me love could be a home, not a battlefield, not a performance. A home. You taught me that the right person doesn't demand the best version of you by force. She invites it. She leaves the light on. My thumb stilled over Serena's knuckles. Because her breathing had changed. Shallow now. Controlled. Like she was counting her way through a fall. Daniel's voice softened for effect. I once believed I was too restless to be chosen. But you chose me anyway. You saw the frightened boy beneath the ambitious man, the lonely heart beneath the charm. A tear slipped down Natalie's cheek. Guests sniffled. Serena stared straight ahead, all the color gone from her face. And then Daniel said the line that broke her. You are my safe place, my witness, my wild and certain yes. Her hand ripped out of mine, not dramatically, not enough for anyone else to notice. But I felt the absence immediately, like a door slamming shut inside my chest. I caught her wrist before she could stand. She didn't look at me. Noah, don't leave, I whispered. You don't understand. Then tell me. Her eyes finally met mine, wet and furious. I wrote those. The chapel blurred. Daniel kept reading, voice rich with stolen devotion. I wrote those vows, she whispered. Not for him, for me. For what I thought love was supposed to be. He found them after we broke up. Something hot and protective surged through me, but I forced it down. She hadn't brought me here to make a scene. She had brought me here because she knew there would be a moment when pride would tell her to run. And some part of her had trusted me to remind her she didn't have to. I slid my hand down from her wrist and held out my palm. Not grabbing, not stopping. Offering. Her eyes dropped to it. The officiant laughed gently at something Daniel said. Around us, people sighed at stolen poetry. Serena placed her hand in mine again. This time, she chose it. I bent close, my mouth near her ear. For the record, your vows are better than he deserves. A sound caught in her throat. Half laugh, half sob. Don't compliment me at a crime scene, she whispered. There she is. Her fingers tightened. You think this is funny? No. I looked at Daniel, then back at her. I think he's pathetic. There's a difference. Her mouth trembled before she mastered it. I hate that he can still humiliate me. He's not humiliating you. He's reading my heart to another woman. Then he's proving he never understood it. She went still. I hadn't meant to say it like that. So plainly, so much like a confession with all the safe parts removed. Serena searched my face. In that crowded chapel with violin music trembling under someone else's wedding vows, my work rival looked at me as if she had just noticed I was not pretending. And I was done pretending. You asked me not to let you leave, I whispered. I won't, but not because he matters. Because you do? Her eyes shone. For one dangerous second, I thought she might cry. Instead, Serena Vale did something far more devastating. She smiled at me, small, wounded, real. Careful, Caldwell, she whispered. That almost sounded like loyalty. It was a tactical observation. Her smile deepened, and my heart made a fool of itself. Daniel finished to thunderous applause. Natalie dabbed her cheeks. The officiant beamed. Everyone stood for the exchange of rings, and Serena stood with them because she was Serena, spine straight, chin lifted, hand still in mine. But she did not look at Daniel again. She looked at me. When the ceremony ended and the chapel erupted into congratulations, I expected her to bolt. Instead, she tugged me toward a quiet side corridor lined with windows overlooking the lake. The noise softened behind us. Sunlight scattered across the water, bright enough to hurt. Serena stopped, turned, and pressed both hands over her face. I stood close, but not too close. Every instinct in me wanted to pull her in. Every decent part of me knew she had to ask. "I'm not going to break," she said behind her hands. "I didn't say you were." "You're thinking it." "I'm thinking about how badly I want to punch a groom, which feels socially frowned upon." She lowered her hands. Her mascara hadn't run. Of course it hadn't. Even her pain was well organized. Then she stepped into me. No warning, just crossed the space and rested her forehead against my chest. My arms hovered for a second before settling around her. The fit of her against me did something quiet and irreversible. She wasn't soft in the way people wrote about softness. She was tense, alive, holding herself together by force. But the longer I held her, the more her weight eased into me. "I didn't ask you because you were convenient," she said into my jacket. "I know." "You don't." I looked down. "Then tell me." She tipped her face up. We were close enough that I could count the tiny freckles across her nose, ones the office lighting had never revealed. "I asked you because, when I'm with you, I don't feel like the worst thing that happened to me is the most interesting thing about me." My chest tightened. There were replies I could have made. Clever ones, safe ones. I chose none of them. I brushed a loose strand of hair back from her cheek. "When I'm with you, I forget I'm supposed to be competing." Her gaze dropped to my mouth. The world narrowed to that. Her hand curled in my lapel, not pulling me down, not letting me go. "Noah," she said softly, and my name sounded different from her. Less like a challenge, more like a place to land. I leaned in slowly enough for her to stop me. She didn't. Our lips barely touched. A question of a kiss? Then Serena answered. She rose on her toes and kissed me like she had been angry at wanting to for a very long time. It was brief. Too brief. A spark struck in a hallway while a wedding cheered beyond the doors. When she pulled back, her cheeks were flushed. "Well," she said, breathless, "that complicates the quarterly review." I laughed, low and stunned. "I'm willing to take the professional hit." Before she could answer, a woman's voice cut through the corridor. "Serena?" We turned. Natalie stood at the end of the hall, bouquet in hand, face pale beneath her bridal makeup. In her other hand, she held Daniel's folded vows. Her voice shook. "Did he steal these from you?" Serena stepped out of my arms so fast I felt the loss like cold air. "Natalie," she said, voice instantly smooth, "this is not the hallway conversation you want on your wedding day." Natalie's laugh came out broken. "That sounds like a yes." The bride looked younger up close. Not in age. She was probably about Serena's, but in shock. Her eyes kept darting between the paper and Serena's face, trying to reconcile the fairy tale she had just been handed with the woman it had been taken from. Serena's chin lifted. "Where did you get that?" "Daniel dropped it after the ceremony. I picked it up, and there were notes on the back." Natalie swallowed. "Your name was on one of them?" I glanced at Serena. Her expression didn't change, but her fingers curled at her sides. I wanted to take her hand again. I didn't. Not yet. This had to be her choice. Natalie held out the paper. "Please. I need to know." Serena stared at it like it might bite. Then she took it. I watched her eyes move over the page. Whatever she saw there stripped the color from her mouth. "Yes," she said finally. "They're mine." Natalie closed her eyes. "I wrote them years ago," Serena added. "They were private. He shouldn't have had them." The bride pressed her bouquet to her stomach. "He told me he stayed up all night writing them." A flicker of anger crossed Serena's face. "Of course he did." Natalie looked toward the reception hall where laughter and glasses clinked beyond the walls. "I knew he had an ex. I didn't know he had unfinished business." Serena gave a humorless smile. "Men like Daniel don't have unfinished business. They have storage units. They keep whatever makes them feel profound." Despite everything, a laugh escaped me. Both women looked at me. "Sorry," I said. "Terrible timing, accurate metaphor." Serena's mouth twitched, just barely. Natalie noticed. Her gaze moved between us again, slower this time, and some of the panic in her face shifted into curiosity. Are you two together? No, Serena said. Yes, I said at the same time. Silence. Serena turned her head very slowly toward me. I cleared my throat. I mean, operationally. Operationally, she repeated. Emotionally pending review. Natalie blinked and then impossibly laughed. A tiny, startled thing. I'm sorry. I shouldn't be laughing. Never apologize for laughing at him, Serena said. It encourages him, but it's one of the few joys available. There she was again, bruised, furious, brilliant. And I was gone for her in a way no quarterly review could possibly survive. Natalie folded the vows with trembling hands. I don't know what to do. Serena's expression softened. That's not something I can answer for you. Did he cheat on you? The question landed hard. Serena looked away out toward the lake. Not in a way I could prove. Natalie's face crumpled. But, Serena said, turning back, I can tell you this. Daniel is very good at taking what belongs to other people and convincing everyone it was a gift to him. Natalie nodded once, like the words confirmed something she had been refusing to let herself know. Before anyone could say more, Daniel appeared at the end of the corridor. There you are, he said, all white teeth and camera-ready concern. Then he saw the paper in Natalie's hand. The smile faltered. Only for a second. But I saw it. So did Serena. Natalie, he said gently, everyone's waiting for us. She held up the vows. Did Serena write these? Daniel's eyes slid to Serena, not guilty, annoyed, like she had broken etiquette by existing. Serena always had a flair for drama, he said. I took one step forward before I could stop myself. Serena's hand caught mine, not to restrain me, to choose me. Her fingers slid between mine in full view of Daniel Mercer, and something deeply satisfying happened to his face. It tightened. Noah, Serena said softly without looking away from Daniel. This is the part where you remind me I'm more elegant than my impulses. You are, I said. Barely. Her lips curved. Daniel's gaze dropped to our joined hands. So this is your date? This is Noah, Serena said. And unlike you, he knows when to give credit to the writer. Natalie made a small sound. Almost a gasp, almost a laugh. Daniel's jaw flexed. This is ridiculous. You kept old drafts, Serena. I saw a line I liked. People borrow phrases. You borrowed an entire heart, I said. Serena looked at me then. The corridor, Daniel, Natalie, the wedding. Everything fell into the background under that look. It wasn't gratitude, it was recognition. Like she was seeing the shape of my feelings and deciding not to run from them. Daniel scoffed. And who are you again? The third choice, I said. But I'm growing on her. Serena squeezed my hand. Daniel turned to Natalie. Come on. We can talk about this privately. Natalie didn't move. For one long second, the whole wedding seemed balanced on a breath. Then she said, I need a minute. Natalie, I said I need a minute. There was steel in her now. Not Serena's kind, sharpened by fire, but new steel, freshly found. Daniel looked at the three of us, calculated the risk of a scene, then smiled tightly. Of course. Take all the time you need. He walked away. No one spoke until he was gone. Natalie exhaled shakily. I'm going to find my maid of honor. Serena nodded. Good. At the corner, Natalie paused. Serena? Yes? I'm sorry he used you. Serena's face went still. Then she said, very quietly, Me too. When Natalie disappeared, the corridor felt too quiet. Serena let go of my hand. This time I didn't let her get far. Hey, I said. She stopped with her back to me. Don't. I haven't said anything. You're about to be kind in that irritatingly direct way. Would you prefer confusing and indirect? From you? It would be a refreshing character arc. I smiled, but she still wasn't facing me. So I stepped closer, slow enough that she could move away. She didn't. I brushed my knuckles against the back of her hand. Serena. Her shoulders lowered on a breath. I hate that you saw that, she said. The vows? No. She turned then, and the vulnerability in her eyes hit harder than the anger had. Me, like that, reduced to something he could still hurt. I shook my head. That's not what I saw. What did you see? A woman who stayed when she wanted to run. A woman who told the truth when lying would have been easier. A woman who kissed me in a hallway and then insulted my career prospects. Her laugh cracked in the middle. I reached for her waist, giving her time to refuse. She stepped into my hands. There it was again, that small, decisive movement that felt bigger than any speech. You keep making jokes, she whispered, because if I tell you everything I'm thinking, you'll panic. Her gaze lifted. Try me. My pulse kicked. Fine. I'm thinking I don't want this to end when we leave the wedding, I said. I don't want Monday to turn you back into just the woman across the conference table. I like fighting with you. I like making you laugh when you don't want to. I like that you scare half the office and alphabetize your presentation notes. And I really, really liked kissing you. Her lips parted. For once, Serena Vale had no immediate answer. I should have been proud. Mostly I was terrified. Then she reached up and straightened my tie, though it wasn't crooked anymore. I liked kissing you too, she said. My entire body went still. Her fingers rested at my collar. And for the record, you were never my third choice. No? No. Her thumb brushed the edge of my jaw, light enough to ruin me. I only said that because asking you felt too honest. I leaned closer. And now? Now I'm at a wedding where my ex stole my vows. The bride may be reconsidering her marriage, and my fake date just confessed he likes my filing system. Her eyes softened. Honest seems efficient. I laughed under my breath. Then she kissed me. Not a question this time, a decision. Her mouth was warm, sure, and a little unsteady, and when my arms closed around her, she made the smallest sound against my lips, like relief, like surprise, like she'd been waiting longer than either of us knew. When we separated, she stayed close, forehead against mine. Monday is going to be a disaster, she murmured. Absolutely. HR will have opinions. HR has always had opinions. And if you tell anyone I alphabetize notes, I'll deny everything. Your secret is safe. From the reception hall, a glass shattered. Then came raised voices. Serena closed her eyes. That better not be my fault. I kissed her temple before letting go. Technically, I think it's Daniel's. She sighed. I hate when you're right. No, you don't. She took my hand again. This time, when we walked toward the noise, we walked like we belonged together. The reception had become a painting of expensive panic. One groomsman held 2 champagne flutes like he'd forgotten why hands existed. A bridesmaid was crying near the cake. Natalie's father stood rigid by the head table, his face the color of storm clouds. And Daniel Mercer was in the center of it all, still trying to smile. That was almost impressive. A lesser man would have looked guilty. Daniel looked inconvenienced. Natalie stood several feet away from him with her maid of honor at her side. Her veil had been removed, and somehow that made the moment feel more serious than if she'd thrown the bouquet into the lake. Serena stopped at the edge of the room. Every instinct in her body seemed to go taut. I shouldn't be here, she said. You don't have to be. That's not what I mean. Her eyes stayed on Natalie. If I leave, it looks like I came to destroy her wedding. If you stay, it looks like you care what happens to her. Serena glanced at me. You're being reasonable again. It's becoming a problem. I can switch to charmingly reckless. You'd strain something. I smiled, and despite everything, she smiled back. Small. Private. Ours. Then Daniel saw us. His expression hardened before he crossed the room. Serena, a word. No, I said. Serena's hand tightened around mine, not warning this time. Amusement. Daniel looked at me like I was furniture that had spoken. I wasn't asking you. Tragic. I answered anyway. Serena made a sound suspiciously close to a laugh. Daniel's eyes flashed. This is between me and her. Serena stepped half a pace forward. Not behind me. Never behind me. No, she said calmly. It was between us when we were together. It stopped being between us when you read my private words in front of your bride, her family, and videographer with 3 cameras. A few nearby guests turned. Daniel lowered his voice. You always did enjoy an audience. Serena's face went still. I felt the hit as if it had landed on my skin. She'd told me once during a pitch fight over a luxury hotel account that the worst kind of person was the one who made you feel dramatic for reacting to the thing they'd done. At the time, I'd thought it was just Serena being Serena. Now I knew it had a name. Daniel. Before I could speak, Serena did. I used to believe that, she said. That I was too much. Too sharp. Too demanding. Too difficult to love without editing. Daniel's jaw shifted, but she wasn't talking to him anymore. She turned to me. In the middle of that fractured reception with whispers gathering like weather, Serena looked at me as if the room had fallen away. But today someone looked at all my sharp edges and didn't ask me to soften them, she said. He just held my hand. My throat tightened. There were 100 people around us, maybe more. Daniel, Natalie, co-workers of Daniel's, strangers with champagne and opinions. I only saw Serena, so I lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. Not for show, not to wound him. Because she had said something brave and my body knew before my brain did that I wanted to answer with tenderness. Her eyes went glossy. Careful, she whispered. I'm still armed with cake forks. I accept the risk. Daniel gave a bitter laugh. Is this supposed to impress me? No, Serena said, still looking at me. Then she turned back to him. That's the point. Natalie approached then, pale but steadier. Daniel immediately shifted toward her. Nat, this has gone far enough. She held up a hand. Don't. He stopped. The room did too. Natalie looked at Serena. I'm sorry I dragged you into this. You didn't, Serena said. He did. Natalie nodded, then faced Daniel. I'm not signing the license today. A gasp moved through the room. Daniel's smile finally broke. You're humiliated. You're upset. We'll talk when you've calmed down. No, Natalie said. We'll talk when you can explain why the vows you claimed were yours had another woman's name written on the bag. A murmur rose. Serena's shoulders stiffened, but she didn't shrink. Daniel's eyes cut toward her. Happy now? I felt Serena inhale. For 1 second, I thought she might say something sharp enough to end him. Instead, she said, no. The single word silenced him better than any insult. I'm not happy, she continued. I'm sorry, for her. For me. Even for you a little, because you keep mistaking possession for love and it's going to leave you very lonely. Daniel stared. So did I. God help me, I was falling for her in real time. Natalie turned away from him and took Serena's free hand. Thank you for telling me the truth. Serena's voice softened. I'm sorry it hurt. Truth usually does when it arrives late. Then Natalie walked back toward her family, leaving Daniel alone in the center of a room full of consequences. Serena watched for only a moment before tugging my hand. Out, she said. Excellent strategy. We escaped through French doors onto a terrace overlooking the lake. The afternoon had cooled and the wind lifted loose strands of Serena's hair around her face. Behind us, the reception buzzed with chaos. In front of us, the water moved like nothing human had ever mattered. Serena released my hand and gripped the stone railing. I stood beside her, shoulder to shoulder. For once, I didn't fill the silence. After a minute, she said, I thought seeing him get married would prove I was over it. And it proved I'm over him. She looked down at her hands. I'm not over what he made me believe about myself. I turned toward her. What did he make you believe? That love was something I had to audition for. That if I was impressive enough, controlled enough, useful enough, maybe someone would stay. She laughed softly without humor. Ridiculous, right? No. Her eyes met mine. No, I said again. Not ridiculous, just wrong. The wind pushed her hair across her mouth. I reached out and tucked it behind her ear. She leaned into my touch. Just slightly. Enough. I don't want to be a rebound, I said. Her brow furrowed. You aren't. I know, but I needed to say it. Because I don't want to be the man standing conveniently nearby while you bleed. You're not convenient, she said. You're annoying. There's a difference. I huffed a laugh. Then she turned fully toward me, her back against the railing. Noah, I didn't kiss you because I was hurt. My heart thudded. I kissed you because when everything was humiliating and awful, you were the one thing I wanted closer. Her voice dipped. And that has been inconvenient for months. Months? Don't look so pleased. I'm trying to look humble. You're failing. I stepped closer until the toes of my shoes nearly touched hers. How many months? She narrowed her eyes. 7. 7? It would have been fewer, but you wore that blue shirt to the Henderson pitch. My blue shirt delayed romance? It made you look smug. I won that pitch. You won because my printer jammed. You loved that printer jam. I considered arson. I laughed, and this time she laughed with me, real and bright, the sound loosening something in my chest. Then her smile faded into something more vulnerable. I don't know how to do this, she admitted, not with someone who sees me clearly. I cupped her face, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. We'll learn, I said. That sounds dangerously sincere. I'm branching out. Her hand slid under my jacket, resting at my waist. The intimacy of it, her fingers warm through my shirt, her body close enough to feel each breath, hit me harder than the kiss had. What do you want? She asked. You. The answer came without strategy, without defense. Her eyes softened. Not the rivalry, not the chase, not some office fantasy. You, I said. The woman who color codes notes and devastates mediocre ideas. The woman who stayed today. The woman who thinks she has to earn being chosen. Her lips parted. You don't, I said. For a heartbeat, she looked almost scared. Then she pulled me down by my lapels and kissed me under the cold lake wind. This kiss was slower. No hallway shock, no stolen moment. It unfolded. Her mouth moved over mine with a tenderness that undid me, and when I wrapped my arms around her, she fit there like an argument finally resolved. Behind us, someone opened the terrace doors. We broke apart, breathless. A hotel coordinator stood there, eyes wide. Miss Vale, Mr. Caldwell, I'm sorry, but Mr. Mercer is asking for you both. Serena rested her forehead briefly against my chest. Of course he is, she muttered. I kissed the top of her head. Want to run? She looked up at me, and the old spark was back, but warmer now. No, she said, taking my hand. I want to finish this and then go on a real date. My heart kicked. A real date? Don't make me repeat myself. It diminishes my authority. I grinned. Dinner? And dessert. With cake forks? If you behave. Hand in hand, we followed the coordinator back inside. Daniel had not asked for us both. He had demanded Serena. The coordinator admitted that halfway across the ballroom, after Serena gave her the kind of look that made junior account managers confess budget errors. He said it was urgent, the woman whispered, and private. Serena stopped walking. Then he can urgently be disappointed. I tried not to smile, failed. Daniel stood near the service hallway away from the guests with his bow tie loosened and his perfect hair finally disturbed. He looked at our joined hands, then at Serena. 5 minutes, he said. No, she replied. His nostrils flared. Serena, don't be childish. I felt her hand twitch in mine, then she laughed. Not loudly, not cruelly. Just enough to make it clear he no longer had the power to make that word land. You know what's strange? She said. An hour ago, that would have hurt. Daniel's expression shifted. She took one step closer, and I stayed with her. Not in front, not behind. Beside. You wanted me here because you thought I'd sit quietly while you turned my private words into proof that you'd grown, she said. You wanted an audience for your transformation, and you wanted me to witness it. His mouth tightened. You're flattering yourself. No, she said. For once, I'm accurately assessing the market. Despite the tension, I snorted. Serena glanced at me. Professional habit. Very attractive professional habit. Color rose in her cheeks, but she kept her eyes on Daniel. He noticed the blush. That seemed to bother him more than the accusation. You two are unbelievable, he said. No, Serena said softly. We're just not about you. That was the moment he lost. Not legally, not publicly, not in some dramatic, movie-ending way. He lost because Serena stopped trying to convince him of her worth. Natalie appeared behind him with her father and maid of honor at her side. She had changed out of her cathedral veil and into resolve. Daniel, she said, my family is leaving. His face drained. Natalie, don't do this. I'm not doing anything today except refusing to make a legal mistake in formal wear. Serena's lips parted in surprise, then she pressed them together like she was fighting a smile. Natalie saw it. Was that good? Serena nodded solemnly. Strong line. Needs no edits. A fragile smile passed between them. Daniel looked from one woman to the other, finally understanding that whatever story he'd planned had slipped out of his hands. I'll explain everything, he insisted. Natalie's expression softened, but not toward forgiveness, toward sadness. I hope someday you explain it to yourself. Then she walked away. The reception didn't explode after that, it deflated. Guests gathered purses, whispered into phones, collected confused children from corners. The string quartet stopped pretending this was still a party and began packing up with the grim efficiency of people paid by the hour. Serena stood very still beside me. I brushed my thumb over hers. You okay? No, she said. Then she looked up at me. But I think I will be. Outside the valet line was a mess of silk, tuxedos, and scandal. Serena and I escaped on foot, walking down the road that curved along the lake. Her heels clicked against the pavement until she stopped under a maple tree and sighed. Don't say it, she warned. I wasn't going to. You were absolutely going to say I should have worn different shoes. I was going to offer you a piggyback ride. She stared at me. What? I said. I contain multitudes. You contain nonsense. Accurate. She looked down at her heels, then back at me. How far is the restaurant? 10-minute walk. Her eyes narrowed. You researched restaurants? I had hopes. You had hopes while agreeing to be my fake date at my ex's wedding? I'm an optimist with poor boundaries. She laughed, and the sound in the cooling evening felt like something opening. Then she slipped off her heels and held them by the straps. Fine, she said. Real date. But if there's gravel, you're carrying me. Gladly. She looked at me sideways. You say things like that too easily. No, I said. I say things like that because they're true. Her smile faded into something tender. We walked toward town, her bare feet quiet beside my dress shoes, her shoulder brushing mine every few steps. Halfway there, she reached for my hand without looking. I loved that most. Not the kiss, not the confession. That unconscious choice. At dinner, she ordered red wine, truffle fries, and the most aggressive chocolate dessert on the menu. We sat in a corner booth while candlelight softened the sharp lines of her face, and for the first time all day, nobody was watching her perform strength. She stole a fry from my plate. You have your own, I said. Yours looked more emotionally available. That doesn't even mean anything. It means I wanted your fry and felt poetic. I leaned across the table. You know, for someone worried about being too much, you're exactly the right amount. Her expression went quiet. Then she reached across the table and took my hand. I'm going to be difficult sometimes, she said. I was counting on it. I don't trust easily. I'll earn it slowly. I may try to turn everything into a competition. You'll lose. Her brows rose. Excuse me? I smiled. See? Romance. She laughed, but her eyes shone. After dinner, outside beneath the yellow restaurant lights, Serena kissed me first. Slow and certain, one hand curled in my jacket, her heels dangling from the other. When she pulled back, she whispered, I choose this. My heart forgot how to behave. This? I asked. You, me, whatever disaster Monday becomes. I kissed her again because there are moments words only make smaller. Monday was, predictably, chaos. HR had a policy. Our boss had concerns. The office had theories, most of them wrong and all of them dramatic. Serena and I stayed professional. Mostly, we still argued in meetings, we still challenged each other's ideas. She still called my minimalist pitch decks emotionally underfed, and I still accused her of putting semicolons where feelings should go. But now, after everyone left, she'd appear in my doorway and say, "Walk me to the train, Caldwell?" And I always did. 6 months later, Daniel Mercer was a name Serena could say without going pale. Natalie sent her a handwritten note once, thanking her for the truth, and Serena kept it in her desk drawer beside emergency chocolate and color-coded tabs. By the following spring, Serena and I had learned each other in ordinary ways. She hated mornings but loved sunrise if she didn't have to speak during it. She cried at old dog commercials and denied it with legal intensity. She reorganized my kitchen once and then pretended it had happened naturally. I learned that loving Serena was not about softening her. It was about standing close enough to see that her sharpness had always been a kind of honesty. And she learned slowly that being chosen didn't require a performance. On our first anniversary, we drove back to Lake Geneva, not to the chapel, but to the public pier nearby. The air smelled like rain and cold water. Serena wore a green dress and carried her heels in one hand before we'd even left the parking lot. "Tradition," she said. I took her free hand. The lake was silver under the evening sky, the same lake that had watched her walk into a wedding as a weapon and leave it as herself. She leaned into my side. "Do you ever think about how strange that day was?" "All the time." "My ex stole my vows." "You stole my heart," she groaned. "That was terrible." "You smiled." "I'm furious about it." I turned her toward me, both of us laughing, and kissed her there on the pier while the wind moved around us and her bare toes pressed against mine. When I pulled back, she touched my face with the same careful wonder she'd had that first day in the hallway. "Noah," she said, "I'm glad I asked you." "So am I. Even if you were my third choice." I grinned. "Serena." Her smile softened. "You were never my third choice," she whispered. "You were the one I was afraid to want." And under that wide gray sky, with her hand warm in mine, I knew some vows didn't need to be read in front of a crowd. Some were lived. What would you have done if your work rival asked you to be her date to her ex's wedding, and you realized during the vows that he had stolen her private words? Have you ever experienced something similar? Tell me your story in the comments. If you liked this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.